Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. I'm Mike Evans.
And I'm David Price.
And David, what are we going to talk about on this week's Hi-Fi Riff?
Well, it's a kind of a sneak peek this time.
Yes.
So myself and a number of other journalists, inverted commas, went to a lovely part of Stevenage not so long ago to a very rare occurrence, which is a Michell press conference.
Wow.
They don't have many of those.
No, I can imagine. Wonder when the last product launch by Michell was. Gosh, it'd been a while ago, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So, well, they made up for it because they had basically they launched a new turntable called the Revolve.
Okay.
Which is basically a kind of sub GyroDec turntable that's a bit above the Techno deck.
Right.
So it's a kind of I think it's about £3,000 or £4,000, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But really, the star of the show was the new Michell Gyro.
Wow. Okay.
So the deck has gone. It's just the gyro now.
Right.
So
very cool.
Yeah. So
it's interesting because we've done a review of the GyroDec before because we decided that you're about the only person apart from John Michell who can set it up in the world. But I've never been, as you know, the biggest fan, and I know you're a big fan.
Yes, I am.
So I've oh gosh, this is a sort of going back to sort of 80s question, isn't it? And what were you? Were you Roxanne, Xerxes? Were you Lynn Sondek? Were you GyroDec?
Indeed.
And they were sort of the Holy Grail, weren't they? The Holy Trinity of turntables. And I was and GyroDec was number 3 on my list.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm LP12, as you know, and then it was Roxanne, which was fairly close, and then GyroDec, which I just couldn't quite get my head around.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if it wasn't a question of they weren't set up very well, and maybe they didn't quite have the right arm and cartridge combination.
Yeah.
More often than not, you listen to them with a Riga RB300 arm.
Yeah.
And a whatever moving core cartridge, and maybe it wasn't quite right. I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, my theory was that. So, I mean, I can set up a GyroDec because I watched John Michell do it in front of me.
Yes.
And he explained. But I wonder how many people actually did that.
Especially dealers. Yeah.
Especially dealers and manufacturers, because I've been to many manufacturers who've had GyroDecs, and you go in and you sort of test the bounce on it. It's going like that, which is like the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, you and I have done that. We've been there. We've seen it at trade shows as well. We've seen them
absolutely
really poorly set up.
Yeah. So and some manufacturers even using GyroDecs as references to test their new turntables against, and then you go and see them and they haven't set the GyroDec up properly.
No.
So it's not. I don't think it's any harder to set up than a Lin. In fact, in some ways, it's easier.
Probably, yes.
Because you don't need that what's it called, this sort of platform thing.
Yes, your jig.
The jig.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're not kind of underneath fiddling around with the springs with a gyro, because they're all in front of you. There are 3 of them, and so it's just a case of aligning it in a certain way, and we'll maybe go into that another time. But it was, I think the dealer level and the dealer level support probably wasn't great for them.
No, and Lynn were. I mean, I went to Lynn for a week
they were.
when I was doing my induction, and I spent a whole day learning how to set up an LP12. It was a sort of it was a prerequisite that you could do it properly. So.
Well, Ivor Tiefenbroom wouldn't speak to you unless you could set one up with him.
And even then you were hit and miss.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Excellent.
So, anyway, the new Gyro is a major upgrade to the GyroDec, and it's not like a kind of, it's got some new springs or some new feet. They basically re-engineered it, and the interesting thing is, it looks very similar on the outside, but under the skin, it's very different. And we will be, we've got some
props.
stuff there. That's
impressive.
There we go. We've got loads of.
Because we haven't got one.
Yeah.
We haven't got one.
We haven't got one. That's the Revolve, by the way. That's the new sort of baby gyro.
Oh, that looks sweet. Yeah, nice. They look amazing. There's no two ways about it. Yeah. I mean, he's a bit like sort of the Johnny Ive of hi-fi, isn't he?
Yeah.
John Michell, because it just, all his stuff looks fantastic, doesn't it? It looks so good.
Yeah. Well, this is the gyro here, and I've got lots of lovely pictures which I took, which will be overlaying hopefully over this video.
Yes.
But there it is. There.
It looks very similar.
Yeah, and it looks very similar.
Yes.
But what we're going to do very briefly is just go over some of the changes, and we can sort of overlay some pictures to be specific. And it's not possibly hugely interesting if you don't have a gyro and you're not a GyroDec fan. But at the same time, the deck is great, and it's now Whisper It. It's now I think it's £6,000 now.
Okay.
So that's expensive. And if you think when the Orb first came out in 1996, that was 2,000.
Right. Okay.
And the GyroDec was just under 1,000.
Yes. Yeah.
So obviously, as inflation is massive, but at the same time, I think they've substantially upgraded the quality of the deck. So the original GyroDec had a large perspex base, as you can probably remember, and then it had a sort of floating sub-chassis, which was sand-cast aluminium, and onto that was the lovely platter with all the weights.
Yes. Yeah.
And so they've still got the platter. They've still got the sub-chassis, which is now, let's just get this right, because I wrote it down.
I mean, it did look like something out of Joe 90.
Yeah.
No two ways about it.
Absolutely. And it was, of course, inspired by... So John Michell had a close working relationship with Stanley Kubrick.
Yes.
And so it was inspired by the space station in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Coolest story ever.
Yeah. So that's the sub-chassis we're talking about. And
the name Gyro was from how much he earned at the time, because that was his £36 a week when he was unemployed.
I don't think that's strictly true, Mike, in the interests of online disinformation.
I got that from AI.
Okay, all right.
That was ChatGPT.
Oh, well, it's got to be true then.
Absolutely.
So I stand corrected. So the new one is basically aluminium tooling plate. So the new chassis is not sandcast aluminium; it's aluminium tooling plate, which is the most kind of rigid and sort of high quality aluminium you can get, and it feels a lot different to the chassis of the original GyroDec. And then that itself has underneath, it has multiple brass weights which look amazing. I mean, it's like jewelry underneath the chassis itself. You don't get to see that.
Okay.
But those are used to counterbalance the arm board and tone arm assembly, which together, if you have a tone arm and an arm plate weighing, let's say, 1 kilogram, then you need 1 kilogram of counterbalancing weights on the other side.
Yeah.
And that they now use brass weights with a kind of interference fit. So that's part which partly damps the chassis rather further.
Yes.
And also they have now some foam treatment around the arm board as well, the arm plate. So that's quite a big difference from the original gyro, which was not damped and just had lead weights basically to counterbalance.
Sure.
So
it's really funny that you should say that, because we've talked about this before, and I didn't realise it until we did the original GyroDec video. It makes perfect logical sense, doesn't it, to counterbalance the tone arm? Because if you have a SME 5 versus an RB300, one weighs a ton and the other doesn't, and so it's going to have an effect. So I couldn't help but think that makes perfect sense.
It does.
I'm not sure how many other turntable manufacturers do that.
Well, this is always the problem with the LP12. So if you had an SME Series 5, which weighed, off the top of my head, about 700 or 800 grams into a lin, and then you then had to adjust the springs so you got an even bounce. So one of those springs would be more, as it were, compressed than another. Yeah. So you really struggle to get a totally linear bounce.
It makes sense.
So having a kind of counterbalanced tone arm assembly makes total sense. You've got an equal rate of all of the springs.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think that was always a great part of the GyroDec philosophy, and that's obviously carried over. But underneath the chassis, with the old GyroDec, you'd have either a large perspex base, or you'd have, in the Spider edition, a little perspex sort of sub-chassis which held the feet on, and that's now gone. They've now got a heavy aluminium base, and it is very substantial. It's a good 5-6 kilograms, possibly more.
Wow.
And that really makes the deck look much more substantial. And at the same time, they've redesigned the feet on it, and they've redesigned the spring fittings and the spring system, so the springs are now tuned, I think it's to 3.5 hertz, where they're basically going up and down, kind of more steadily, and they've arranged it so it can't wobble anywhere near as easily.
Which was the problem.
From side to side. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is that's exactly the problem, because a well set up GyroDec would kind of you'd press it in halfway between the spindle, where the record spindle goes on in the center of the record, and the pivot point on the tone arm. You press it halfway between that point, and it should bounce up and down evenly like that.
Okay.
But in so many cases, it would go like that.
I can visualize lots of the Hi-Fi Riff who own GyroDecs doing exactly that now, and maybe being a bit miffed that it doesn't, it goes a bit wibbly wobbly. So.
Well, you can get it to, even the GyroDec, you can get it to do that pretty well, but it does it even better now with the gyro.
Yes.
And also you've got another issue which is a live issue for GyroDec owners, and it was the same with Lynn with the P-clip. You have to dress the tone arm cable coming out of the bottom onto the plinth. But with the GyroDec, the gyro, there is that's a consideration. You have to be careful about that.
I get it.
But anyway, it's got a slightly improved bearing, which is how can you improve it? It was brilliant anyway. It's always, I think, one of the best parts of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
But the overall effect is, I think, also the power supply is different. The motor is in a really solid aluminium housing now, and obviously is disconnected from the deck itself. So basically, you've got all of the problems with the original have now been ironed out that I can see. I haven't had one in for review, but I had a couple of hours to play with them, and I was carefully kind of poking around and doing that. And someone took a picture of me and put it on their website, just because I was so, no one else was poking it.
Is that sadoldgit.com?
I know it was, yeah, exactly. So
how did it sound?
It sounded great. So it's $6,000 now plus ARM, and that's pretty much. I think it's more expensive than the Orb, or it's very close, and that's an issue for Michell, because they've currently got their sort of penultimate turntable, which is, I think, pretty much the same or even more expensive than their top range one, the Orb.
Yes.
And the Orb, of course, was a fantastic sounding deck, and still is. But I think it's just a guess they'll be bringing out a new Orb with a similar thing.
Because the gyro is better than the Orb.
Because the gyro is better than the Orb.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So if anyone's heard an Orb, it sounds brilliant, and it sounds a lot better than the original older GyroDec.
Yeah.
So this sounds better as well. And it's basically cleaner and tighter. Tonally, it's a little more smooth. I always felt the gyro had a little kind of slight clang in the upper mid band, but you only really hear that if you've got very revealing speakers. But to me, the speed stability was excellent. The dynamics was superb. It's an absolutely cracking sounding high-end belt drive turntable, and as I always say, I love direct drives and I love belt drives, but when you do a belt drive wrong, you get all kinds of problems. When you do a direct drive, we do either one wrong, you get problems, but you get different ones. Mm-hmm. When they're both right, you get a great direct drive and a great belt drive. The sound begins to come together.
Sure, okay.
So like almost the perfect solution is there somewhere in the middle between a great belt drive and a great direct. And the gyro has definitely got more direct drive sounding, I would say, in the sense of the speed stability, the precision, the dynamics, all that kind of stuff.
Because the original ones weren't, because I remember having to put two drive belts on the gyro to try and stop it from, wowing, because the original ones had major speed stability issues. So
I mean, I think, to be fair, the gyro only ever had a GyroDec only had a speed stability issue when it wasn't properly set up.
Interesting, okay.
Because when the suspension is basically going like that, you're getting like a slipper clutch.
Okay, fair point. Okay.
So, it's just not driving it. And that's the big problem with any circumferential belt drive design. So there are plenty of belt drive designs which have belts going around the circumference of the platter.
Yes.
Whereas you talk to, Taraj from Roxanne or Vertier now, and he would always say that's the wrong way to do it. You need a short belt and a motor pulley close to the inner platter itself with a short and non-elastic belt. So
Roy Gandy was something very similar, wasn't he? With a tiny spindle on the Riga 3s.
Absolutely. So those differences of approach in that.
Yes.
And Michelle would always say, well, we have a heavy platter which acts as a kind of flywheel kind of thing. So so we can argue. Let's all go down the pub, everyone, all the Hi-Fi Riff viewers, and let's all just argue about that until it closes, which is the better system. But,
no problem. We'll do that later.
Yeah, we'll do that later. So basically, anyway, it looks fantastic. It's much more expensive, the new Gyro. I think it's a cracker. I think it's going to give headaches to Lin and Vertier and other such manufacturers. But it kind of, you could almost say it's the deck that it always should have been, but to be fair, it's now at a substantially higher price point than the original GyroDec was. So I mean, in the 90s, the GyroDec was sort of, under £1,000. It was crazily cheap, and at one point, LP12 had overtaken it quite a lot.
Yes,
the base LP12 and the base GyroDec.
Yes.
So, it is what it is, but all I can say is that I think it's well worth people looking at it and investigating it, and it's just beginning to get into dealers now. And, it's I think it's a great deck. It sounds lovely. It's more dynamic. It's more kind of crisp sounding than the original, tighter in the bass, and more detailed, and still got that. The great thing about the GyroDec always was that huge soundstage. It's really big. Yeah. That's still there. That's brilliant. So have a listen for yourself, and obviously we'll be reviewing it when we get a review sample.
And maybe this is going to give eBay a shot in the arm for inexpensive gyro decks. Where people upgrade to the gyros. Yeah. And then for, I don't know, what do you charge? £250 plus VAT per an hour. David will come out and set it up for you. Bargain of the century.
Will I? Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely.
Are you taking a percentage of that?
I'm taking some commission. I'm not giving you that. You get about 25 quid.
Cheers.
So, that's all it's worth.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm glad you like that idea, right?
I think it's a great idea.
At least one of us doesn't. Anyway.
Brilliant. Yeah. So great stuff. I'm really dying to hear it.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I was sort of secret hoping you might have one in the back of your car.
No.
But no, okay, never mind. So we will listen.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that even if we had one here, then we couldn't share it because it would weigh a ton.
Yes.
And it'd wobble a lot and all those things.
Yeah.
So, But there we are. But watch this space. We'll see if we can do a proper one. But look, that's a good riff.
Indeed.
It's good fun. It's nice to have a new product, and well done, Michelle, guys, for bringing one out
at last.
Well, I was going to say that, but it's just really good to to hear it's still alive and kicking and going really well.
That's Simple Minds.
So are we.
Well, speak for yourself.
Well, on that
bombshell.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff, and we'll both very much look forward to seeing you at the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.